Ladies and gentlemen, this is by far the coolest line in the history of movies. Listen to this.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it.
Oh my God, I remember the first time I heard that. I knew immediately that Batman was going to lose that fight. It was the beginning of the movie, so they always lose in the beginning, but that's besides the point. The point I'm making is that if you guys can get to that place as athletes, as parents, as coaches, where you can look your opponent in the eye and say, I was born in this idea of darkness, in this idea of the possibility of failure, you have an advantage. Fear of failure is one of the top 3 fears in the universe. My name is Rick Williams, better known as Coach Rick, and in today's video, what we're gonna do is teach you guys how to overcome the fear of failure. We've got 3 key points in how we're gonna do that, all right? So let's get into the video. The very first thing that we have to do to overcome the fear of failure is that each one of us has to take the time to define failure. You cannot be afraid of something that you have not yet defined, right? And I think what happens so often with us as players, coaches, and athletes is that we're letting someone else decide what failure is to us, right? So how many of us are essentially just slave to the scoreboard? Scoreboard says that it's a digital item and it's electric and it's got numbers on it, and it says that the other team had more points than we did, and we identify that as failure. And certainly at certain levels of the game, or if you've decided that winning is of the utmost importance, then that's okay if you decide that that is your definition of failure. But too often I think that we have the wrong definition of failure. I'm going to make a couple of points to kind of prove this, that failure, the way the world wants you to see it, isn't quite necessarily what it is, right? So here's an example. Let's take top 5 scorers in NBA history. Who are they? We got LeBron James, we got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, we got Kobe Bryant, we have Karl Malone, and we have Michael Jordan. These are the 5 top scorers to ever play the game that you and I both love very much. Now, take that same list and let's put it up against the top 10 all-time missed shots in the history of our game. And what do you see? That's right. If you look right here on this list, you see 5 of the top scorers that we talked about are also in the top 10 of missed shots. So the idea then that missing a shot in a basketball game is a failure has to go out the window. It clearly looks to me as though missing is a prerequisite for succeeding, right? So we can go outside of the world of sports to make this point as well. You guys have heard this in your history classes, because I know you're paying attention in history class when they taught to you about Thomas Edison and how he has to make the light bulb. How many times did he not make the light bulb before he made the light bulb? The numbers changed over years, and I think it's a number that doesn't really matter. He says 1,000 times. The point is that he failed and he failed and he failed again until he didn't. So the definition of failure cannot be as simple as that I was trying to do something and I didn't do it. It cannot be as simple as the other team had more points than me. It cannot be as simple as I took a shot and I missed a shot. We have to be more mature than that. The whole purpose of you guys coming to this space to share time with me is to raise our mental game, to bring ourselves to another level where we're able to see things sort of above, like a plane's view of the situation that we're in. So here's how I would like you guys to go forward, defining failure. Failure is defined as a broken promise to yourself. Don't look at it as anything else. No one else can ultimately put on you when you have failed and when you haven't. If you haven't set the goal, if you haven't decided, made a decision, and the decision is different than a choice. We talked about that before, right? If I make a choice, I can change my mind. If I make a decision, there is no turning back. I'm cutting off all other options. I'm adding weight to my wants, and I have decided I am going to be X. What we like to do at AGB, we like to have a week where we work with our clients and we say, look, this week I want you to pick a goal, just a simple goal. It could be something like, I'm gonna fix my bed every morning before I leave. I'm going to start my day with prayer every day. You pick the thing that you're going to commit to, and you track that commitment. Make it a simple thing just so you can get going, right? Pick something and then track and see if you can do it 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row, 4, 5, get to 7, 14, 15 days in a row where you start to do the thing that you said you would do. And you'll start to see the benefits of what happens when you don't break promises to yourself. Okay, so that's point number 1. Make sure that you set your own definition of what failure is. And for us, we believe what it should be is a broken promise to yourself. If you've committed to a particular goal and you haven't done it, then it is time for you to do the step 2 of what it takes to overcome the fear of failure. Step 2 is to admit that you're afraid. The simple step, but an important step. We did a video last week where we talked about the idea of caring a lot, right? To play better basketball, you have to care a lot, because too often as athletes, we trick ourselves into like playing it too cool, where we act like we don't care whether we succeed or fail. That is a trap. If you want to learn more about that, go ahead and watch the video that we did last week on how to play better basketball. But when I did that video last week, I thought to myself, well, Rick, you're not telling them how, right? So if they care a lot, and that means that failure is a possibility, then how do you get them to be able to absorb that failure? Like, how do we work through this to the point where we do admit that we don't want to fail? We do create a promise for ourselves. We say, I'm going to do X. I'm going to talk on every possession. I'm going to shoot every single time I'm open. But you have to admit that you are afraid of failing. To admit it is the first step to overcoming it. So I want to tell you a story really quick. So I'm in high school, right? I like to tell you guys stories from my career to kind of make it all come together. So I was in high school. I was playing against a ranked team, right? So I went to Lake Howell High School. We were playing against Dr. Phillips. So if you're from Florida, you know those two schools. And back then, Dr. Phillips was like the school. Julius Peppers went there, James Gilchrist, a guy named Paul White. So we had some really, really good players. We were pretty good ourselves, and we were being competitive in this game. But here's the bottom line of the game. They were pressing us, okay? They were in a diamond press. If any of you guys have ever played against a diamond press, you know that most of the defense is in the front court. I was a pretty good finisher, so my coach put me in the back court. So basically, I'm waiting for the team to break the press. Paul White is 6'8", 6'9", 6'10". He's just a phenomenal athlete. For context, I'm 6'3" and a half or so. And I'm waiting to get the ball on the back end of this press. And the entire time while my team is trying to break the press, Paul White is just chirping in my ear. And he's calling me something that I'm not going to repeat here on YouTube, because on this channel, I'm trying to keep everything real PG for every athlete. I want all athletes to feel comfortable listening to me. But while I'm waiting for the guys to break the press, and then the very first time that my guys broke the press and they got it to me, it was a 2-on-1 situation. And all I had to do was go up strong and finish. But because I was afraid of failing. I was afraid of messing up. I was afraid of maybe adding some validity to the thing that he was saying to me. The very first time I caught the ball, I fumbled it out of bounds. And you know what my opponent did? He started laughing. He laughed on the way back on offense, and I had to do the walk of shame on defense, right? I knew that he had gotten to me, and I had to admit that not only was I afraid, but in that moment, because I had made a promise to myself to be an aggressive player, I had failed. So what did I do? The very next possession, I was in the same position. He's doing the same thing. He's like, you're going to mess up again. And this time when I caught the ball, I gave him a pump fake. He went for the pump fake. I ripped it past him, and I dunked this basketball so hard. I was trying to rip the rim off the backboard. I was so frustrated, and I was taking out all of my frustration on the rim. But that's not even the lesson. I'm going to tell you the thing that Paul White did that changed my basketball career forever. Instead of laughing, do you know what he did? He patted me on the butt and he said, "That's how you play." So what that taught me in that moment as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old athlete is that even my opponent wants me to play fearless. I want you to think about that. Those of us who like to compete, we want competition. We strive to see people at their best. I want to see you at your best. I want to see me at my best, and I want us to compete, and I want to go at it. So there is absolutely no room for any of us to be playing the games that we love with a fear of failure. So you can admit that you're afraid, but then as you see it, then you've immediately got to say, you know what? I owe it to myself. I owe it to the opponent. I owe it to my teammates to embrace this fear of failure and to attack it, to channel our inner Bane here, but to submit to it, submerge yourself in it, and be born in this idea of darkness. It's okay. So that sounds, again, a lot easier said than it is done. So what is the third and final step on how to overcome failure? Okay, so you've now defined what failure is to you. You realize that it's really ultimately your barometer to set, and it is a broken promise to yourself. It isn't the scoreboard. It isn't a missed shot. It isn't society. It isn't comparison. It's your own decision to say, here's what I'm going to do. And if I don't do it, I will admit that I am afraid of failing, and I will embrace the darkness, and I will attack every single chance I get to attack my day, to attack my career, to attack the game. All right. So you've defined it. You've admitted it. Now, the third step is I want us to actually answer the question, what happens if I fail? Let's break that down. All right. Now we've defined it. We admit it. And it actually happens. All right. Let's say that story was different. Let's say that the next time I got the ball, I stumbled over it again. And it went out of bounds. And this time Paul White laughed at me so hard and I was so ashamed that my coach took me out of the game and I never got back in again. Let's say the story ended that way. That would be the ultimate failure, right? Now, here's the question I want to ask myself in that scenario. So what? Now what? When we fail, what does it mean? What is the ultimate price to pay for failing? Our own definition of failure. We've admitted it, and now we've failed. Let's answer the question. What happens when we fail? Well, here's the good news. And I say that intentionally because the good news comes from the good book. Those of you who know the channel, you know I am unashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I understand that there are words in the Bible that can help us as athletes, as coaches, as parents. And so sometimes we can lean on lots of things to help us get better, but sometimes it's good to just come back to the truth. And the beauty of attempting life with everything that you have and having no fear of failure is that it's biblically based. You are backed up by the kingdom of God. You are created in his image. There are lots of verses that we can use to prove this point, but none better than Romans 8 that talks about the simple fact that can we be separated from the love of God? Is there anything that we can do as human beings that separates us from our Creator? And the answer is ultimately no, right? For in him, we are more than conquerors. We are more than conquerors through he that loves us. And so all we have to do is submit ourselves to him and do everything that we can for his glory. So when you're playing the games, if you go 20 for 25 and you have 45 points and you win the championship, and then you think that's about you think it's about serving yourself and serving your ego, then this verse and this whole concept of having no fear of failure can't help you. You're out here to do this for you. And we're going to talk about that on this channel all the time. The whole purpose of confidence is to be able to help other people, right? And in that way, you're doing it for the kingdom. And so when you're doing something for the kingdom, you can do it completely fearless. There is no condemnation. There is no chance that you actually fail. So I want you to define what failure is to you. Hopefully you see it as I see it, as a broken promise to yourself. And then I want you to admit that you are afraid to fail. And it is not fun to feel a sense of failure. And you're going to care a lot and do everything that you can to attack your day with everything that you have, because you're going to answer the question, what happens if I fail? And the answer to that question is nothing. You are still you. You are still capable of attacking the next day. You are still capable of getting up. You are still loved by your parents. You're still cared for by your coaches and your teammates, and you are still a child of God. We are having such a great time bringing these videos to you. That's myself, my team. There's a team of people that I work with to come up with these ideas and help me do the research to bring good content to you guys. And we're enjoying this so much. We appreciate those of you who have subscribed. We're on our mission now for 200 subscribers. So if you're digging the video, if you like the vibe that we're trying to bring, which is ultimately just a positive vibe that's all about getting better in our headspace as we go out and do the things that we love. If you're enjoying it, go ahead and hit that like, subscribe button, comment in the video, engage with us, help us grow this channel so we can keep bringing you good content. We're super excited about our film academy that's coming up this summer. If you're, one of the things you can do to really overcome your failure is to understand the game better, right? And so we're going to come live on Friday nights and we're going to break down the game of basketball. We're going to pull up some college basketball films, some NBA films, even some local high school students that we work with. And we're going to break down film and show X's and O's and little footwork details. I like to get really intricate into the details to help people. So if you're interested in that, there should be a link in the description on how to sign up for that, or you can just come here on YouTube live and we will go live when we start that here later in the summer. Right. So again, thank you for watching the video. I appreciate you guys a great deal. Until we see you again, always get better.